Well, hey, everyone, and welcome to episode number 59 of the Other Six Podcast. My name is Chad Boak, and I am your host. Joining me once again in the studio, my co-host, our worship pastor, the man who quit his job at the bank because he was a loner. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Matt Collins. Matt, how are you today, sir?
I'm wishing I was back at the bank right now.
Right. Also joining us in the studio today, our executive pastor of operations, Mr. Hardy Sellers. Hardy, how are you today, sir?
I am well.
It's good to see you, man.
It's good to be seen.
Yeah, we don't normally get to have you on the podcast, so this is a treat. Yeah,
it's a treat for me.
Yeah, it's a treat for us.
Come out of my cave and get a chance to talk.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, gentlemen, it was kind of a little bit of a longer weekend this past weekend. So I'll start with you, Hardy. What did you guys get up to for the holiday weekend here?
You know, we had first of all, the weather could not have been nicer.
Oh yeah, we're in that like 3 week butter zone.
Enjoy it right
zone.
now.
Yeah.
So we had a good weekend. Kind of took it easy Friday and Saturday. Just did some stuff around the house, some woodworking, made a few cutting boards, that kind of stuff.
Okay, so back up. So you've gotten into woodworking, is that right?
Talk
to me about
anything that he's made?
Dude, he made me a Millennium Falcon cutting board that is in my office. That is amazing. Yeah.
So just. I call it my sanity. You just go there.
That's where you escape,
I
huh?
escape, and I can create stuff.
That's cool,
I'm not
man.
a huge creative person, but I enjoy doing that.
That's awesome.
So I did that. Sunday, of course, we had a great day here, and then Monday I took the boys and we went to Six Flags.
Okay,
nice.
All right, Six Flags. All right, so tell me about that.
Well, it was awesome. First of all, the way I do Six Flags is I go onto their website and I look for the least busy days of the year.
Sure,
like you should.
Yeah, right.
Because that's the way I roll. And normally we go the Tuesday or Wednesday before Thanksgiving, which is a low attendance day. But this year we're going to be in California visiting my daughter for Thanksgiving, going to Universal to Harry Potter World.
Okay.
Believe it or not, on that same day.
Yeah. So
we need to do it, and so saw this fall break, which is kind of new to us.
Yeah.
I think I don't remember it. So. So we had the day off, so I said, you know what, I'm going to give my wife a break, take the boys, and we left at 7 in the morning.
Okay.
Got up there about 2.5 hours, hit Chick-fil-A, grabbed some lunch. There at about 10:55 to enter the park right on time, and we rode roller coasters and rides until 6 p.m.
Okay.
Until they said, you have to leave now.
They shut the park down.
6 p.m. there is 5 o'clock here.
Right.
So we were home at 7:30, 7:45.
Man.
So what was your favorite roller coaster?
Favorite roller coaster, Pandemonium.
Pandemonium. Is that a new one?
I've never heard of that one.
Again.
Right, yeah.
I don't know.
It's like asking Hardy, like, what's your favorite TV show? He doesn't watch TV. All right, so what was it like? Is it like a hang down, stand up?
It's a hang down. It's a huge post, and then it's got a circle, and you sit in the circle all facing out, and there's 38 people, I think, that sit around the circle.
Okay.
And so it spins slowly, and then it goes back and forth, and it actually goes beyond 90 degrees. So you're up there, and literally you're above 90 degrees. So it's
not like a traditional roller coaster.
It is not. It's a ride.
It's a ride. Gotcha.
But it was, Superman's fine. Batman's pretty cool. We rode those. That's fun. We did everything once. But we rode that 3 times.
Superman. So what I remember about the Superman ride there is it's like you're laying down, like it encloses on you.
Wasn't Superman Top Gun at one point?
I'm not really sure.
I don't know the history of Six Flags.
Yeah, me either. But I just remember, you get in it and you lay down and you're going like head first, like you're flying like Superman, right?
Sure.
For our audio listeners, that's what it is. And I always think with any other roller coaster, like if the lap bar were to come up, I think I might be able to hold on and be okay. That one, bro, like it ain't happening, right?
We also did that one that has the swings, which is always kind of fun, where you swing around.
Oh, yeah.
But this one jacks you up. I mean, you're way
If
above
one of those snap, you're gone.
Oh, yeah. And you're not going, okay, because there's little thin chains.
There goes Hardy.
It is very disconcerting, the size of chains that are holding you on. Being the engineer, I'm going, okay, those are probably 150 pounds each. I got 8 of them. I'm probably good, but
maybe.
But it was a good trip. You had a good time with the boys.
Had a great time.
Yeah, and obviously, I think one of my wife's favorite rides, the Monster Plantation, whatever it is. You guys do that?
We did that.
Yeah, the Stay Out of the Marsh. You remember that one? Don't go into the marsh.
Since I've been here, they've added them.
I hadn't taken a Six Flags trip in a while. I need to make the effort to make it happen.
It was again. For us, it was great. It was
good.
No crowds, no lines.
Yeah, that's awesome. I'm glad you had a good time. Matthew, what'd you get up to, buddy?
We were at the coast.
Nice.
Biloxi, Gulfport area.
Okay.
So got family down there. We were down there. Beautiful weather.
Yeah.
I went running.
Nice.
Actually, I lied. I didn't go running. I don't know why I said that.
He's trying to get some cred for the
I didn't go running.
for the subject for today, right?
I thought about running.
Yeah.
No, I thought about it. No, but we did go down on the coast. It was actually really nice. I don't know why I said that.
That's awesome. But it was a good weekend.
Yeah,
good
it was
time
great.
away.
Yeah.
We missed having you here on Sunday, but the team did a great job.
They did.
They did
here.
awesome.
Yeah. It was awesome. Joya and Anita and the rest of them up
Yeah.
there, Ryan leading worship, in the band, they did a fantastic job.
Yeah.
But we missed having you here, as always.
Well, thank
And then, so we had a pretty fun weekend. So last week, our microwave, the little latch that holds it, the door closed, broke. Not for the first time, so we had it repaired before, and it breaks again.
Is that a common thing?
Yeah, I guess so. But it won't. You can't hold it closed and microwave anything with good reason. That's not.
You can stick a fork in there.
Right? Yeah, sure. Probably not the best idea.
Probably not.
And so we went and bought a new microwave.
Nice.
And so Friday, Christy goes to work. I'm at home because we're off on Fridays. I'm at home with the girls. They had fall break, and I think it's over the range. I'm gonna get this thing installed before Christy
Man
gets
of the
home.
year.
Yeah, and she's gonna be super impressed, and it's
super
gonna be
impressed.
awesome. And a few hours later, as I'm calling my dad in despair, like, Dad, can you come give me a hand?
Please help.
So the other one came down pretty quickly and easily.
Yeah,
like
Gravity.
huge help. But no,
Thanks, gravity.
I put like an upside down laundry basket under it so it would catch it as it came down, towel on top of the range, all that kind of stuff. Yeah. I thought a little bit ahead.
Yeah.
And so the new one had all these like templates where you're supposed to drill the holes. Utterly useless. Like, I mean, it's like, well, if you have this kind of, backing,
Right.
or if you have this or this or this, and I'm going, I have no idea what I'm doing. And my brother-in-law, Bill, who I normally call, is like rafting down with his brothers down a river. And he's whatever. I'm like, I'll figure this out. So I wing it to some extent. And for the most part, it was okay. But I get the microwave, finally up on there. It's latched in. I'm pushing it up, and the holes do not line up whatsoever. And I'm sitting there going like, this is bad.
Nice.
So I call my dad. And my dad's he's like you, very, very good with all things woodworking, mechanical, engineer, like all that kind of stuff. And so I call my dad. He comes over there, and we end up having to drill a couple of new holes. It wasn't too far off, but we got it up, and it's working. Yeah,
Perfect.
it works. It hadn't fallen yet, which is
Good job.
Does it look
which is
nice?
good.
I mean,
It does.
It's not like an inch off from the center.
No. You would think
He's
someone
gonna go
that knew
home
what
and
they
look.
were in.
Right now, he doesn't know. He's
Yeah.
gonna go home and be like, yeah, it is.
Yeah, that's right. So I was happy with that. And then obviously Sunday, we had a great day. We'll circle back around to that here in just a moment. And then yesterday, it was interesting. So the girls, again, they were off school yesterday. And something I actually learned from you years ago, when my girls were small, I would always take them to breakfast, once a week.
Yes.
Just daddy-daughter date kind of thing. Obviously, they get older, school, all that kind of stuff. It becomes a lot harder to make that happen. So yesterday, we were able to do daddy-daughter date time with the girls for the first time in a while. So we went to Chappie's.
Of course.
And because that's where you have to go if you live in Montgomery. Well, Waffle House has a bad history in our house. Ava had a really bad
that's
experience
too
there
bad.
one
The
time.
awful waffle.
That's right.
Yeah.
But we went to Chappie's, had a great time, got to hang out with them, and it was a nice day. And I mean, like you guys said, the weather is just like absolutely gorgeous right now.
Yeah.
So, but it was a good weekend. So we had a good time. I'm glad you guys had a good weekend as
Sounds
well.
like it.
Not nearly as much fun as riding roller coasters and shoveling funnel cakes down the
thrill
throat.
seeker
was
over
fun.
here.
We had a good time.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad to hear that. Well, Sunday was a great day here. Lots of folks here. Like I said, the worship was great. And we continued our message series from stressed to blessed. And we actually talked about our health. Our physical health,
Nice.
how to go from
Brave.
being stressed with our physical health to being blessed. And it's so funny because, I think it's a topic, like we said, where it doesn't get brought up a lot in church, but it is obviously something that causes folks stress. And so we want to make sure to meet folks where they're at, the things that they're dealing with, and talk about what the Word of God has to say about it. But before we jump into that, Hardy, I want to talk a little bit about you, buddy. So most folks know you as the admin guy around here. Finance.
All things Hardy.
Yeah, finance,
things Hardy.
facilities, basically all the jobs like none of the rest of us want to do. Hardy,
Or good at.
Yeah, that's right. Hardy kind of swoops in and takes care of that. But one of the reasons I wanted to have you on the podcast today, just, in addition to just nobody else being willing to do it.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. One of the reasons we wanted to have you on here was because there's another area to your life with health and fitness, coaching and all that kind of stuff. And so I want to talk a little bit about that. Tell us about that side of Hardy Sellers.
Well, there is another side. I would call it an avid runner and cyclist,
Yep.
and that took into me becoming a running coach. And then I became a cycling coach, and then I actually became a triathlon coach.
Wow.
And so
Wow.
not only doing a good bit of running and cycling and triathlons, competitive triathlons, also coached people, which was a lot of fun. So we did
and
that for many
swimming
years.
is the third component.
Swimming
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
and that was, So anyway, not my favorite. I swim to get to to get to the bike.
Get to the bike.
That is the only reason
Yeah.
I swim is because I have to.
Right.
They make 'em.
But anyway, so yeah, we did that for many years and really enjoyed that. Also took on some nutritional food components to it. Learned a lot about that. So have had an opportunity to work with a lot of competitive athletes, but also a lot of new athletes. Hey, I want to do my first half marathon, or hey, I used to run a lot. I had kids, and now I need to get back or want to get back into it. You know, that type coaching.
Sure.
So anyway, so I'm very passionate about all things health, fitness, running, cycling.
Well, and don't be too humble now. You ran Boston a couple of times, right?
I did. Had run Boston a couple times.
Which to qualify, to even get to Boston is a pretty quick pace,
and
right?
it's a great it's one
What's
of
the
those
pace?
it's a bucket list.
Yeah. What did you?
What's the pace?
Well, here's the deal. You can either be fast or you can just age into it. Because like the older you get, the
That's
less
the
fast
key.
you have
I'll
to run.
age into it.
Yeah.
That was my plan.
65. Here we go.
At some point, not 65. So have to be fair, but at some point they just say you can come in. You know, you're 90.
Yeah.
Hey, come on
come on,
in. That's
buddy.
close enough. Yeah.
But I mean, you had to do what? Like it was like 3:10 or less to
something
get
like
to
that.
Boston. 3 hours and 10-minute marathon. Yeah. Which I understand that
not
most of
gonna
the
do
folks
that.
listening to this probably aren't exactly in that area of their life when it comes to health and fitness.
It's okay.
But,
you're in good company. You're
Yeah,
with me.
that's
I'm not
right.
doing
Yeah,
that.
who almost ran this weekend? which
That's
I was
right.
very
Yeah.
impressive,
This is why.
He thought about it. It was
Thought
really
about
close.
it. Thought long and
but
hard.
my point being is you've dealt with folks from all different phases of health and fitness, correct?
I have.
Okay.
And
I say dealt with, you work with. Yeah.
health and fitness, and
Yes,
especially
opportunity.
fitness, is a relative term, and we could go on hours just about this. But and it's really because everybody compares themselves to other people, and
Sure.
people always say, are you going to win this race? And my answer was, it depends on who shows up.
Right.
Because,
If Matt shows up, yes.
Yeah, 'cause he's only going to think about it.
In a certain group, I would be considered a fast runner, but in another certain group, I would be considered a slow runner. It's
Sure.
all, and so you learn how to kind of take it into grips. Same thing with health. People sit there and say, I want to be able to do this and compare themselves to other people. And it's really an individual sport. It's like,
Right.
hey, become the best you.
And you've seen people from all ends of the spectrum
have.
get involved and move from ends of the spectrum
Yes,
as well,
I have.
right?
Yeah. So I've had some brand new and end up qualifying for national championships and things like that, which
That's
is
just
always
crazy.
amazing.
Yeah, that's really, really cool.
So most people don't know this, but you guys used to train together, right?
We did.
Yeah,
for many
Were you
years.
was this a coaching thing?
It was just I don't know how that started. Just kind of a friendship thing.
Yeah, just kind of.
Actually, I don't know, it wasn't even a friendship at the beginning.
He didn't even like you.
I didn't know Chad.
Yeah.
I mean,
well,
Well,
it's-
let's talk about that. The journeys of Hardy and Chad training
well,
together.
Sure. So, the way it really started, obviously Hardy and I have worked together for over 20 years. And so I didn't really get into all this in the message this past week, but, this journey I'm on right now is not actually the first time that I've lost weight. So when I was 24 years old and working here at the church, I weighed 320 pounds and significantly heavier than I was at my heaviest and most recent. And through a series of events, again involving my wife holding me accountable and coming and telling me that she loved me and she was worried about me, started working out and eating right and losing the weight. And I actually got down to about 150 at one
Wow.
point, which
Skinny Chad.
yeah, which I will also we'll get to this in a little bit because the pendulum swings unhealthy one way to unhealthy the other way.
Yeah.
It became
Yes.
unhealthy the other way for me. But I before that happened, so Hardy was just like, hey man, why don't you come and run with us? And there was kind of a group of us that would work out together. And so I remember we training for my first marathon with
Was
Hardy.
that Boston?
That was Charleston.
Charleston.
Yeah, Charleston. 10 or 11. Yeah, one of those.
2010.
And so we trained together, and and there were
Terrible marathon, by the way. Back then, I'm sure it's gotten better. we did. It was the first year,
Right.
And it was less than stellar.
right. Well,
It was learning curve.
they were
there.
like run through historic downtown
Beautiful.
Charleston, beautiful
Gorgeous.
for a mile and a half, and then after that, it's just terrible, and you're not going to love it.
Wasteland.
But but it didn't start with running marathons. It started with just slow. I remember walking. I remember being excited that I had increased my pace on the treadmill from 2.4 to 2.5 miles per hour for like 25 minutes.
Yeah.
I was stoked about that. And I remember going to the gym and watching TV and all that. But Hardy kept me really encouraged throughout the entire process. So when I say that you've worked with folks from every side of this spectrum, it's true. He's worked, that's what he's done. And we talked in the message about accountability and having folks there to encourage you, and you were that for me in a big way during that time. And so eventually, I did lose the weight, got a little bit faster, and Hardy said, "Well, hey man, why don't you come run with us?"
Let's take it up a notch.
That's
here.
right. And let me tell you something. You will make friends fast with folks when you're running side by side for 2.5 or 3 hours, a couple of times a week. And we had another friend of ours, John, that we're still really good friends with. And But man, I tell you, our motto was accountability through ridicule. So like if you didn't show up, like we would kind of we'd bust on you a little bit, but it was a really good time.
That's a good method.
That's right. And really, man, those were even though it was kind of like sometimes it was miserable, the things we were doing. Like
misery loves company.
Yeah, that's right. And it really built up a cool camaraderie. And really so from there, we did races, we did a couple triathlons, things like that. And
you were doing triathlons.
Yes.
Were you coaching him through this too?
I trained with him, so I got coaching for free. Like that was what I couldn't afford, coaching.
Yeah, smart with.
So we would, but I mean, when I say there was a group of us, I mean, for a while there, it was like 15, 20, 25 folks that we would all get together most days a week and kind of hang out, and whether it was running.
Where were y'all running at around here?
So mostly we like Wind Lakes, Pepper Tree, East Chase, Deer Creek, all that kind of stuff. And then, ride bikes out into Pike Road and all that kind of area. So it was a good time though, man. It was a neat season, but obviously life changes. And so then I almost called my story this past week A Tale of Two Chads because I did some of these races and I'll tell you, man, my motivation eventually started not being the right thing. I kept thinking like,
what was it?
It was. I kept thinking it was going to bring me some sort of like completion in my life, like if I run a marathon, I'll feel like I've arrived. Well, I cross the finish line and you're happy, but like, I don't really feel like I've arrived. Okay. So I'm going to do an ultra marathon.
One more.
We did a 50K trail run up in, which is 31 miles up in South Carolina. I remember crossing the finish line. Doesn't really feel that great. Did a 50-mile run in Laurel, Mississippi, and remember crossing the finish line and like, didn't really feel that great. Did an Ironman in Chattanooga, 2.4 mile swim, 112 mile bike, 26.2 mile run, thinking I'm going to cross the finish line and feel like I've arrived. And man, I did not. It did not. And I remember thinking like, what am I doing? So the problem that I made then was I kept, I got to a place of unhealth, even with physical fitness, the other end of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And eventually that made the pendulum swing back the other way because I got so burned out, tired of working out, couldn't find that good rhythm in my life that I'm now on the journey that I'm on now, trying to drop the weight again. But so that's kind of our story. We've worked out together, and even through this process, Hardy has done an incredible job. Hey man, how much weight you lost this week, all that kind of stuff, keeping me encouraged, and that's been it's been really encouraging. And so it's kind of a crazy thing, but again, something we don't talk about in church a lot. It just doesn't happen. So let me ask you this, Hardy. Why do you think that our physical health does have such a huge impact on our spiritual health?
Well, obviously, we were created in God's image, and our body is the temple, and most of us are familiar with that. So I think that has a large part of it. But when we work out, and we feel better about ourselves, and you have to love other people. You have to first love yourself, and it's one of those things where we can really get down on ourselves. And we can talk about food all y'all want today, but food has a huge part to this on what things do chemically, hormonally to your body, and how that reacts and how it affects you, and it can affect your mood. And so all those things, I think, to be the optimal is we need to be careful about what we put in our bodies and be careful with that, because I find myself, when I feel better, I am more disciplined. When I feel better, I have better prayer time. When I feel better, but if you feel like you're been hit by a truck, it's you come up with excuses.
Probably the McDonald's that you've been eating.
Exactly. And
this is sponsored by McDonald's.
So I think that has part to do with it, with just the disciplines and discipline's discipline. If you say, well, I'm gonna have the discipline to get up every morning early and read the Bible, then have the discipline to get up every morning and do a little workout, and have the discipline to say no to that third dessert or whatever it may be. I like
That's
two.
me.
So anyway,
But three's just excessive.
Let's stop at 2.
Well, no, and I think that's such a good point, because I know in my life, the times that I'm not living physically healthy, that it is harder for me to get up in time and have my quiet time and all that kind of stuff, because I feel more rushed. I stay up later, right? I get in that we talked about that feedback loop of failure.
Feedback loop. You sit there and you stay up late, so now you don't work out. Well, I'm not going to work out. I might as well eat cruddy, and now I'm going to eat cruddy, and now I feel like I'm taking a nap, and now I can't go to bed on time, so I'll stay up even later, and it's just a crazy cycle.
And do you find that those decisions, bleed over into our spiritual lives?
100%.
Interesting.
100%. I find myself, when I am tracking physically, mentally, spiritually, it's all that discipline. It all kind of goes well together.
Absolutely. And again, I think that's why it's so important. Again, God's word is not silent on it. We talked about several verses, from Sunday about how, our bodies are the dwelling place of the Holy Spirit, how we're to offer our bodies as living sacrifices, holy and pleasing to the Lord. And yes, that is honoring to God, but also, like you said, you have to love yourself. It's also a way to make sure that you're taking care of yourself the way you need to, and the Lord is looking out for us in that process. I think that's really good.
So, I guess for both of you, why do you think talking about us being physically unhealthy is uncomfortable? It seems like it's a little bit more in church too.
Sure.
Well, there's a couple reasons. First of all, look statistically. I think right now we're about 40% of people are obese. 60% are overweight in the United States right now. If you go to pastors, it's closer to 75% are either obese or overweight.
You said pastors?
Yeah.
Okay.
Baptists being the worst. And there are a lot of reasons.
Well, I think we might have just hit on it.
The third dessert there, buddy.
But again, we're going to kind of just look at what's going on culturally, and a lot of it has to do, and I'm guilty of this too, is we like to throw things under like, they're gluttonous. The Bible talks about gluttony. Very few of the overweight people I know would I consider gluttonous. I mean, I don't see them, like y'all would remember some of the old Monty Python skits, but one more wafer thin mint sub. Anyway, when you think of gluttonous, and that's in the Bible. I mean, Jesus was called gluttonous. I don't think he was fat. So when we talk about it, people go, well, that's glutton, and so it's very hard for a pastor to get up and say, well, because there's really not gluttony. What it is poor education and poor discipline. And so people don't understand, because if you look, there are so many reasons why people are overweight. Part of it could be lack of discipline. Part of it could be culturally.
Sure.
There are some cultural. I mean, if your comfort food for your family is stuff that is extremely high in refined carbs, y'all are going to suffer with weight issues.
Yeah.
If you have a mental thing with food and that's your comfort, when you get stressed, you eat. And there are people that work out more when they eat, and when they stress, and there are people that eat when they stress. And if that's you, then you're going to struggle with those. So there's so much more that's not sinful. And so pastors are dealing with it. Being a pastor is a very stressful job.
Yeah, absolutely.
It can be a very busy job. It can have weird hours and those type things, which all lead to, and a lot of pastors, they are, every time you go, we need to break bread. Well, you break enough bread, you're going to have a weight problem.
You need to not break some bread. Maybe here's some water, buddy.
Let's break some fruit. That doesn't sound nearly as good. Here, have a banana.
Breaking bread.
So a lot of it, and then it's just the education. In the 1980s, they came out with a new food pyramid, and it was high carbs, low fat. And if you notice, that is when it became epidemic.
Interesting.
Because at that point, refined foods took over, and now those have become a staple.
Yeah.
I was, and I'm not down on anybody, but I was the other day at a Dollar General, and I saw someone shopping, and they were doing their weekly shopping at Dollar General. I don't think there are any fresh fruits or vegetables at Dollar General.
Sure.
So their household would not have any fresh fruits or vegetables.
Yeah.
That family's going to have issues.
Yeah.
Sure.
With, and we can go talk about 12% of people right now, type 2 diabetes. I think 40% of people right now have pre-diabetes. So if you're sitting there, either you or the person on either side of you is dealing with diabetes to some level right now. So we have all these issues, and we need to talk about it. But most people in the ministry, 75% of them are dealing with it themselves.
Sure.
Yeah.
And it's hard. We love to talk about things we don't deal with.
Right.
All murders are terrible because I don't want to kill anybody.
Right.
But when we're dealing with it, it's harder for us to talk about it, because at some point it's personal, but also it can be hypocritical. Like, hey, why don't you push away from the table, big boy? So we have the issues of that, and then it's just the knowledge of what do we talk about, because it's not gluttony, it's not necessarily sin, although we can look at it as how they're taking care of their temple. They just don't know, and we don't do a good job educating people, and people don't want to be educated.
Yeah.
They're like, I want to take a pill and lose weight. I don't want to change.
Instant.
I don't want to change the way I eat.
Right.
I don't want to learn about fasting. I just want to find an easy solution because I'm so busy. So all that leads into why it's not talked about, because it's uncomfortable to talk about. A lot of people out in the audience, it's very convicting to them. That can be uncomfortable.
Right.
And then also, well, what do you say about it? How do you,
Yeah, well, and you mentioned about how many folks are struggling with it. And I think that's one of the things that makes it so important to talk about. And I get what you're saying. It can, let's be honest, it can feel embarrassing, right? I
Sure.
think it can absolutely, feel embarrassing. And even when Adam was talking to me and said, "Hey man, this is what I want you to talk about," I'm like looking in the mirror going like, "Really, dude?" Like, I'm still, I would call myself chubby at this point, and he said, and it was kind of funny because he basically said like, "Well, the good news about that is like you're still in the fight, and like hopefully that can be an encouragement to folks." So when we talk about this, like, some folks may go, "Oh, well, Hardy's qualified for Boston. He's a runner. This is just easy for him." Hardy, is this easy for you?
Nothing worthwhile is easy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
also going to that is we got to be careful who we compare. What is the goal here?
Right.
Why are you trying to get
Yeah.
healthy? If you're trying to get healthy because you look good in a swimsuit, as a 56-year-old man, that ain't possible. It's just one of those things. So why? But I have these people. I just want to look good for this and this. That's a very shallow reason, and that's not a really good reason to. Now, if we're talking about, hey, I'd like to be alive with my grandkids. I'd like to be able to play with my grandkids or play with my kids.
Yeah.
Just and do those type things, or be physically active, or be able to travel with my spouse when we're empty nesters, or whatever it may be. Those are phenomenal things. But a lot of times, the reason people want to lose weight are not really good long-term reasons, and they'll kind of play out.
Yeah, and that kind of goes back to that the quote that I shared. Discipline is remembering what you want. Like you have to realize what it is that you want. And so I shared, for me, I want to be there to see my girls grow up and
Amen.
walk them down the aisle and be there for my daughters. But then even more important from that, from a maternal perspective, I don't want to be disqualified from the work that God's called me to. Like I want to be able to, we've talked about this village in Peru that we sponsored all these kids with compassion. I want to be physically fit enough to be able to ride on an airplane, go down there and hike to the village or do whatever else, needs to be done. Take the gospel. I want to be, you talked about ministry being, demanding. Folks don't think of ministry as a physically demanding kind of job, but like it takes stamina to get up there and preach the word of God. It takes stamina to keep up with students in ministry, with kids in ministry.
A lot about that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, to do to go and serve at the high schools and elementary schools and reality and truth ministries, and so like we want to make sure that we're not doing anything to disqualify ourselves, from that. So we're talking a lot here about physical unhealth being, we're basically correlating that to overeating and not exercising. But are there other areas of our lives where we can be physically unhealthy?
I mean, I think for sure there are a lot of different ways that we can be physically unhealthy besides just that.
Mm-hmm.
And it just comes down to, and I don't know exactly what you're asking as far as the family or where we're, what we can do or what we cannot do.
Yeah.
What are you asking for?
So basically things like, like some of the examples I gave, not getting enough sleep,
Oh, of course. Okay.
Things like where you're, maybe you're working too hard
much,
or addiction.
Just addiction and just having lanes in your life and understanding balance. Balance is such a overused and understood word. Just having balance in your life of understanding there are so many things that people could do right now, and people get tired of hearing it, to get healthier. Drink more water.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, if you
Walk more.
drank more water, if you exercise, and I didn't say run, I didn't say go walk 30 minutes, fresh air, vitamin D,
Get outside.
get outside. So work on increasing the number. Don't, they say you need to have six fruits and vegetables. Okay, just eat one.
Right. Start at something you can do.
Somewhere that you can do, and make
I'm gonna
it.
drink more water because you don't.
There you go.
Drink your water.
And make it convenient on what you can do. So just having balance, getting a good night's sleep.
Yeah.
And again, that's different. You just got to know your body.
Yeah, I was reading an article and it talking about exercise, walking. It says it cuts it down 70%. I have to find it again, but it's like 70% less likely to have a stroke by walking.
Yeah.
It's and the
like
challenge
30 to 45 minutes probably.
Like everybody looks at, it looks at someone that works out a good deal and go, I can never do that. But you don't have to.
Right. Yeah, the goal is not that. The goal is health.
I think
we want to be healthy.
There's a lot of people that do comparison. The only person that you should be in competition is yourself.
Your better self, yeah.
Beat yourself. Like, I walk 30 minutes. Well, okay, I'm going to walk 35. I'm going to build up that tolerance.
Right. And one of our points, Sunday was you need to resolve to make a change. Mm-hmm. And, first you have to take an inventory, and we said the Holy Spirit can help us with that. Other folks can help us with that. We talked about the different quadrants of things about our lives that there are things.
The quadrant.
Oh, yeah. Well, I told the audience since Adam wasn't there, I wanted to make them feel at home. So I had quadrants.
We like quadrants.
Yeah. But, we said,
we love them here.
We said there's some things that everybody knows, us, everyone else, God. There's some things that only us and God know. But then the bottom quadrants were there are some things that everybody else and God knows that we have no idea about, and there are some things that only God knows. Yeah.
That's the one that should
Yeah.
scare you. Is
Right.
when everybody else knows that you don't.
Right. Yeah.
That's the one that okay.
That's called a blind side.
Yeah, but my point is that you need folks in your life that can help you take
Right.
an inventory of your life that you
Yeah.
trust more than yourself. You know, several times Hardy's come to me and said something that I really didn't want to hear, but I trust Hardy more than I trust myself. We've known each other for a long time. We're good friends. You're a good friend too, Matthew. I would trust you as well. But my point
Same.
is you have to resolve to make that change in your life, whether that is overeating, whether that is some sort of substance abuse or addiction, whether that is you're not getting enough sleep or you're working too much, whatever that looks like in your life, you have to resolve to make that change before you're going to be able to move into a place of health.
All right.
Yeah. Well, okay. So, you broke out the quadrants and stuff like that.
Right.
Why do you think that our physical health matters so much to God? Like,
Sure.
we're talking a lot about like us, but why do you think it matters to God so much?
Well, he loves you, right? He loves
Right.
you and he cares about you. And, I think about my children. I want my children to make healthy decisions.
Sure.
I want
Yeah.
them to, live a long life that's honoring, to the Lord. And, and again, there's the spiritual side of it, that our bodies are temples and dwelling places of the Holy Spirit, all that. But also just for a practical reason, I want them to be happy.
Right.
I want them to be happy.
I think John Wayne said, life is tough. It's tougher when you're stupid. And feel free to edit all this out, what I'm getting ready to say. But, where the Bible's very clear, we're going to have troubles.
Yeah.
Don't worry about tomorrow. Today's going to have plenty for you.
Yeah.
But I can handle challenges. I can handle problems and issues. What I don't like are self-inflicted.
Yeah.
God, that just drives me up the wall when it's
I did that.
self-inflicted.
Right.
I'm like, God, this is 100% my fault. Whether it's, so whatever that could be, and I could, but it's one of those things where a lot of our health issues.
Yeah.
A lot of that are dealing with it, and I'm like, this is self-inflicted.
Right.
This is
didn't get here overnight.
This is from years
Yeah.
of abuse. And the question you have to ask is, did anybody that loved this person say, hey, listen, and they may or may not have, and did that person just go, you know what, I don't care. I'm going to keep drinking, and Chad's got more stories about this, but I've got a friend of mine that was having some issues, and he went to the doctor, and Chad, you had a similar situation, and but the guy said, how much Diet Coke were you drinking? And he was drinking 6 cans a day. Oh. And this is
I got to be honest with you, that was amateur hour based on what I was doing.
so I know I don't want to speak for Chad,
yeah,
but I
Chad,
remember this
'cause-
guy calling me, just going like, because I'd be going,
It's
"You
diet,
you're,
though."
You're drinking Diet
Bro,
Coke, you're drinking
I'll tell
much,
you more
much,
about
much,
that in a
much." And it was just absolutely amazing how much, but people had told him, but it wasn't until the doctor said, this is affecting your health.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's just one of those things of we need, before a doctor tells us, before our friends tell us, look at our lives. Is there something we're putting in our body that we probably shouldn't, maybe
Yeah.
to the
Yeah.
amount? And I'm a big fan of moderation. I love ice cream,
Yeah.
but I have to moderate how much ice cream
Right.
I eat. And again, now we go into understanding the system and insulin response and things like that. And if you really want to get into, start studying what insulin response does, because the majority of people you see out there, they're tapped out on insulin. They can't. And so what happens when you're tapped out, your body starts storing fat. All
Yeah.
these kind of crazy things happen. It affects your body's ability to burn fat. It affects your body's ability to sleep. All these things are happening because of insulin response.
Yeah.
And so if you learn that, and that's going to be giving up refined, simple sugars and more fruits and vegetables, healthier foods, a lot of water, and then come over here and start learning about fasting. I do intermittent fasting, and that's another good way to get your body kind of adjust and
Yeah.
resync.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things out there to help with that.
Yeah, and this word, you keep using the word moderation, which is a good word. I would call it health. It's being at a place of health,
Sure.
making a healthy decision. And no, you were talking about the diet soda thing, Matthew. I'll instruct you on this. So the problem is, yes, it doesn't have calories, but it does have all these artificial sweeteners, which makes your body crave a higher level of sweetness.
yeah.
So literally, I was drinking about a 2 liter to a 2.5 liter a day of diet soda. And so you talked about the insulin stuff. Well, we'll get ticky-tack. This is the podcast, and we can talk about what we want to talk about. The test that the doctor gave me that said I was 12 times more likely to be diabetic is called an insulin resistance test.
Okay.
And so if you score 33 or under, that's considered fairly normative. Between 33 and 66, kind of an increased chance above 66. Like you got to make a change. Mine was 72.
Nice.
When I did it, when I went,
You did it, buddy.
That's right. So he put me on the medication. Well, my goal when I went back the next time was to be off that medication. And I remember getting the score for the next time. It was down to a 4.
Yeah.
So I went from a 72 to a 4. That was when I handed him the certificate that said most improved patient. And I was like, you can hand that back if you want. Yeah.
But I mean, talking about diet sodas, because I know there are probably people out there that drink diet sodas and go, it's diet, blah, blah, blah. I had a friend that I was coaching, and a healthy guy, good athlete, triathlete, but he wanted to take it to another level. And I said, your next level is through nutrition.
Right.
Because you can actually make a lot more grounds improvements through nutrition than you can through training, interesting enough. And once I learned that, it kind of changed my whole world as far as coaching. And one of the things is we put him on a kind of a very strict diet that Chad's very familiar with, and he gave up diet sodas, and he had to go to the doctor because he wasn't sure what's happening, but he couldn't stop shaking.
Yeah.
And he was like, going, doctor, what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And he goes, what have you changed? He goes, the only thing I've changed is and he told him about the diet. He goes, you're literally from the sweeteners detoxing.
Yeah,
from withdrawal
yeah.
from that. And he was like going, I will never touch a diet soda or any type of soda again.
So Coke Zero.
Right. No, I mean, honestly, it's better to occasionally have a regular soda than it is to drink diet soda.
If I'm going to have a soda, I'm going to have the real thing.
Right. And so occasionally I'll have someone that's like, oh, this is all natural, and I'll take a swig of it. I'm like, no, this tastes too good. This has got to be bad for me.
This is not.
Yeah, like no. And I'll look at it, and of course there's aspartame in it, or something along those lines. So let's get real practical for a moment. I know we're talking about obviously there's the spiritual side of God wants us to be healthy and how it affects our spiritual life, which is kind of the main point of the message from this past Sunday. But just real practical, if there's a difference between the person that is listening to this that it wants to do races and Ironman triathlons and all that kind of stuff versus the person who says, man, I think I'm living kind of, unhealthy. I'd like to make some changes. What are some quick and easy, maybe not easy or quick, but what are some slight changes that a person can make in their daily lifestyle to kind of see some results?
Like we said, the easiest thing is start drinking more water and
Sure.
And the best thing I would say is give up sodas completely and just start drinking water. I mean, your taste buds, about every 2 weeks you get new taste buds. So actually, if you go, I don't like the taste of that, give it a few weeks. You'll be fine.
Water and coffee.
Yeah, and so
that's what I drink now.
So you've got that. Getting a good night's sleep is important. But then just looking at what nobody has ever shoved anything in my mouth. Everything that I have eaten, I have willingly, or either my mom when I was little, or I have put there.
Yeah.
So my body, I'm going. It is a result of the decisions that I made. No one has ever shoved a Snickers bar down my throat.
Body by Hardy,
or a piece of broccoli for that matter. So I have to take ownership of everything that goes in my body. Going, okay, is this glorifying? Is this helping me get where I want to be?
Right.
Yeah.
If I want to be healthier, if I want to be a better example to my kids, if I want to be able to do the things that God, one of the things when I was into fasting, more of the longer fastings, trying to learn about that, it was I wanted to be ready whatever God called me to do. And if it required me to go without food, to go without sleep, I was preparing my body. So my answer was always yes. Yeah. And not only was the mind is willing, but the body is weak. I was like, no, I'm ready. Put me in, coach. Let's go.
Yeah.
And so looking at that and just kind of saying, okay, what are we eating? And these are the best things. Is the best time to make planted trees 25 years ago. Second best times today. You don't wait until you need the wood. You don't wait until the doctor says, hey, make a change. So look at your diet, look at your grocery list, and say, okay, what are the things that we can get rid of, and what are the things that we can add and replace? And I'm not a big fan of, hey, we got these chips that are made from cauliflower. But no, just say, you know what, we're not going to eat chips for a while.
Yeah.
We're going to save them for a special occasion.
Hold off.
This whole replacement. Hey, I made this dessert that tastes just like. No, it doesn't. I promise you, it does not taste like it. Just say, you know what, I'm going to do without dessert, and have a glass of tea before bed, and call it and be happy with that.
Yeah.
Sorry. Do you think? And you said something earlier that kind of made me think like. You were the one that was choosing what to put into your body. Do you think maybe that's why it's kind of uncomfortable because you're holding a mirror up to your habits?
Good point.
That's really good.
That's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, do you
Yeah, you're having to face the result of your own bad decisions, right?
Yeah,
and that's never comfortable.
Yeah,
that's never comfortable. You know, talking about just some practical things, you know, I only know what works for me and might be helpful for some other folks. You know, like you said, you know, got rid of the soda, drink water and coffee. I do put, you know, some tasty creamer in my coffee, but that's about it. Because But no, I mean, I try to cut out as much, you know, just sugary, you know, bread, all that kind of stuff. Basically, a good rule of thumb is the fewer ingredients in something, the better. The closer it is of it coming out of the earth or off the animal, like that's typically what you want to do. Now, that being said, I refuse to give up cheese. I don't want to live in a world without cheese.
Yeah.
You know?
Cheese is great, man.
Cheese is wonderful.
Great. I get it because you grate the cheese. But anyway.
Hey.
But no, but I think, and, you know, you mentioned there, you know, the best time to plant a tree 25 years ago, second best time, you know, today. You know, we talked about this day of desperation, you know, in the message yesterday, like how everybody, it's kind of, you can call it rock bottom, day of desperation, whatever you want to call it. How for me, hearing the results from those tests from the doctor, that was when I was like,
that was enough.
Yeah. Well, I go, I have let this go so far, and it's what sin, and not that this necessarily was sin, but it's reminiscent of what sin does in our lives. It takes you further than you ever thought you would go, costs you more than you ever thought that it would, and so that's what this had done for me, this unhealth in my life.
Right.
And so I'm grateful, you know, that Christy made me go to the doctor, you know, because otherwise, like, I wouldn't have done that. But just, it wasn't like overnight I made all these changes and lost this weight. It was a daily decision that I had to make every moment. Honestly, these small little practical changes. Just get up and walk a little bit. Choose water over soda. Pick a salad instead of having French fries with that kind of stuff.
So were these things that you were changing, were they more sustainable? Like,
They have to be.
That's
right.
That's the challenge with diets.
Yeah.
Right.
It is, I'm going to try this diet. No, just pick a lifestyle. And don't go too crazy because it's not sustainable.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, and again, I was a vegetarian for a couple years. I was a vegan for a while, and I've done that. And to be honest, felt healthy. It was wonderful. The challenge is other areas of my life. If you want to have fellowship with people, in Montgomery, in Montgomery, Alabama, good luck with that.
You have to give something
Hardy
up
has
there.
since gotten saved and come back to fried chicken. But
So, but you know, it's just one of those things of find something that's sustainable for you in the season of life that you're in, which again with young children is different than single, is different than young married, is different than senior. I mean. Yeah, your pocketbook change. I remember I look at how we eat now. I could not afford to eat, you know, to buy the
sure.
Right. Yeah.
Well, you know, you mentioned the person earlier shopping at Dollar General. That may be all they can do,
Right.
but you have to find the options of what's going to work for you.
There's always something that you can do that's healthy.
That's exactly
always
right.
something you can do. So don't just say, well, and convenience is a huge thing.
Yeah.
You know, as far as, well, it's already made, it's already in package. All I got to do is unwrap it. And guess what? It never goes bad. That should be an indicator.
Really
not
bad
exactly food.
that should be a problem.
Right.
So just finding things that you can do, and there are so many. YouTube answers all your questions, but you can YouTube. There are people that go out and for very little money buy everything, prepare all their meals on Sunday, and have it all ready
Meal
and very
prep.
convenient meal prep. And they've made it a sport of sorts.
Yeah.
And a big fan. Whatever works for you.
But it requires intentionality.
Yeah.
It requires a little bit of forethought. It requires going, okay, this is what I'm going to do. You mentioned the word lifestyle. And that was what struck home with me, was like, I just had to come to terms with the facts that for the most part, there were going to be some things like I just couldn't have those anymore.
Right.
Now, and we'll get to this idea here in a moment, the idea, you know, days of celebration, that kind of stuff. But like, that's okay. Yeah. That's perfectly okay. And like, that was what was going to keep me healthy.
Well, I think you guys mentioned this earlier, but the feedback loop of failure.
Yeah.
Let's talk about that. You know, like, let's explore that little idea and talk about it. But also, like, if you're caught in it, how do you get out of it, or how do you avoid it at all?
Yeah. So Matt, tell us what feedback is. You're an audio guy. What is feedback?
Feedback is sound, that unpleasant noise.
Yeah. So a sound comes out of a speaker.
Yeah,
Goes into a
and
microphone.
It basically, like, if you hold a mic up to a speaker, it's picking up the mic, and then it's doubling on that and doubling on that and doubling on it.
So you eventually get that shrill high sound.
And it's a little bit more. There's a little bit more to it than that.
For all you pilots, it's called pilot induced oscillation. PIO.
Yeah.
For the absolutely. For the pilots that are listening in, which we do have some.
Yeah,
from
we
the
have
military.
a good bit.
Absolutely, they'll understand that. So the feedback loop of failure. I gave a couple of examples what it looks like, but like here's what it is. You're on a diet or lifestyle lifestyle, whatever you want to call it, and you mess up one day and you have some Oreo cookies because your wife went and bought them and left them at the house.
You had to eat them.
You go in there at 9 o'clock at night. You've had a long day, and there's ice cold milk and some Oreos, and you're like,
and
well,
you're like, why not?
Right. So then that night, so you wake up the next morning, and you're supposed to get up and work out. I had the Oreos the night before. You know
did what I did. You thought about running, and you didn't do it.
That's exactly right. So we'll use Matt as an example of a feedback loop of failure.
Great example.
So you don't get up because you're like, you know what? It's the weekend. I'll get started again on Monday. Well, then the rest of the weekend, you eat out, you don't work out, you do some things you shouldn't be doing, you stay up too late, all that kind of stuff.
Play some video
Well, then
games.
Monday rolls around, and honestly, after the last couple of days, it's a lot easier. You know what? I know, there's a new month starting next Tuesday. That's when I'm going to.
Next Tuesday.
What happens is the moment turns into a day, which turns into days, which turns into weeks, which turns into months. Then you get in this feedback loop of failure. It keeps doubling and doubling and doubling on itself. And it's really easy to do, man. It's really easy to do. And I mentioned that we see this annually every year with New Year's resolutions.
Yeah.
People are trying to make January 1st their opportunity to break that feedback loop of failure, and inevitably what happens, the gyms are full, at the beginning of January, halfway through, they're out. So
having accountability with that, and there's just so much to it. I think it all starts with shopping, because what I can justify anything short of murder at about 8:30 at night.
Sure.
I've had a long
just
day.
wait till 8:45.
Yeah. I mean,
then he might.
I get up at 4:30 in the morning, have my quiet time, do my exercise, go. Then sometimes I go to the gym after that, so I have a good
Hardy, the birds
workout.
aren't even up that early, man.
And chickens are, though. I know that for a fact.
If you're getting depressed listening to Hardy talk about his routine, just look at me and know that it's still possible.
Then you have a long day at work. You get home. You got the kids, and we've got two boys at home, and so you're dealing with just after school and all that kind of craziness. You finally get them in bed. It's been a stressful day, hard day, and you're like going, you know what? I deserve. That's the words that go through my. I deserve. Pick a poison. Right. I don't care what it is.
Sure.
I can
all the ice cream I can.
I can justify,
some other
rationalize, you name it.
Yeah.
And not even feel guilty about eating it because I earned it. I deserved it. I worked out. I did all this kind of stuff. Blah blah blah. And then after you do it, you feel kind of guilty. I shouldn't have done that, blah, blah, blah. And then you go to bed. You don't sleep good because you got all that sugar causing an insulin spike. So you're literally, you're burning carbohydrates instead of fat at night. I won't get into the science of that. So you wake up the next morning, you're hungry, you're irritable, and it just starts a cycle. And what you have to have is someone that knows what your goals are, knows you, and can call and say, hey, let's walk, or let's go run,
Put
or let's
down the spoon, Matt.
Right.
And
but it's one of those things where, and if I know someone's going to ask about it, I'm more likely to be good.
Right. And that's why accountability is so important.
Accountability is huge, and it doesn't have to be physical. I mean, I do a lot of my cycling and my running sometimes on the treadmill and on a bike in my house, and I've got people that comment on, hey, I noticed good run or good bike. So if you ever want to know what Strava is,
the power of community.
And so I have community with people that a lot of them were in my Bible study classes 10 years ago, and we still keep in touch through Strava.
That's so cool.
On going back and forth on, hey, good run, or
and that's again that.
I get high fives like, you thought about running, man. Good job.
That accountability is so important, but at the same time, you have to make that decision. You have to have that self-discipline because no one's going to force you out of bed.
Again, it starts at the grocery store. If you don't buy it, you can't eat it.
That's right.
If you sit there and go, golly day, I'm sorry. My thing when I was coaching people, I said, if a carrot or a boiled egg won't solve your problem, it's not hunger. It's cravings.
It's craving.
Right.
And so just understand. So if, just have a carrot. Well, that doesn't do it for me. Then get over it.
Thinking about the way our grocery stores are laid out, if you just stay on the outer ring,
stay on the edges.
You'll be good. Because all the good stuff is in the middle.
The challenge is when you have kids. And
right.
So
that's the thing,
okay.
right? I know
Christy
has to go shopping for the girls to send them snacks, to take in their lunch boxes. And again, I want my kids to be able to have some chips and cookies. I mean, we send healthy stuff as well. Yeah. But the problem is, Christy has to hide it in our house for me because I'm like, listen, if I see it, I know for a fact that I don't have willpower. So I go to bed earlier if I have to.
Halloween candy is a real thing. Right now. now.
Yeah.
It's out, and like I'm just like I don't even want to go to the store.
Just be careful.
Well, yeah, well, we're getting ready for the trunk and treat coming up October 30th.
Yeah.
Like, I can't go into Morgan's office right now because there's like 10,000 pieces of candy.
It smells like
Yeah, absolutely.
But people talk about like Tom Brady and his diet and what about. Listen, I promise you, if any of us had a cook that prepared all our meals ahead of time,
right.
You can only eat this.
and said, "Hey, here's your food," I'd be fine with that.
Yeah.
I'm sure it's delicious and it's healthy and it's everything I need and it's.
When you meal
that's
prep,
just not
though,
life.
think of
That's
yourself
not
as
life.
the chef.
That's right. There you go. Yeah.
The chef that prepared it.
But like
it
we
was Chef
said,
Matt.
it requires intentionality, and again, and that's a very good thing to have in our life. So one of the things we talked about was how our physical health is a marathon and a sprint. There's kind of times and seasons for both. So define for me the difference between a marathon and a sprint for some that may not know, and then let's talk about how that applies to our
A
lives.
sprint is a short race run at a very high tempo that you can run for whether it be a sprint 100 yards, you can run for 100 yards. You couldn't do that for a half mile or quarter mile.
Right.
A marathon, 26 plus miles, and that is more of an aerobic pace where you're if as far as the system, a sprint is an anaerobic exercise where a marathon is an aerobic exercise for more of that.
And so for kind of what I meant with that point was this whole idea like that you have to do what's going to work for you. But there's also different seasons in our life. So for example, when I was first losing the weight, it started slow and then I hit a really good stride and I was able to be a lot more disciplined. Yeah. And then we entered into kind of a different season. I've been helping out with students quite a bit lately, and like that requires later nights for me a lot of times. And I will be honest with you, bro. There is single topping pizza like at every event that we go to,
and Mountain Dew, and man, I don't know how
that
you do
was
it.
Well, that was a whole other thing.
You got rid of all of it, didn't you?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Okay, right.
Yeah, dude, we had middle school guys here. We didn't have to worry about that. But my point is that so for some people, like for me, I know that it's hard for me if I don't have restraint on the front end. It's going to be hard for me to have it in the moment, and so that's what self-discipline starts at the grocery store. All right, I don't go to a restaurant where there's a buffet because I know that if there is, I'm not
going to get my money's worth.
That's right. Now some folks, they can go 5 days super strict and then eat kind of whatever they want on the weekends and then pick it right back up on Monday. I can't do that. That feedback loop of failure is way too easy for me. And so for different people, they have different methods. And so really, you talk about self-discipline. Well, it's whatever works for you to get you to that place of health.
Exactly.
That's what you need to do. And but also like sometimes you kind of get after it in your life. Sometimes you slow down a little bit more. And Scripture talks about this. There's a season for everything. And so that's part of physical health, I think, is knowing the season that you're in and acting accordingly.
Well, even when you're training for a race, you have A race, B race, different races priority, and you have an off season. And like when I was competitive, my body fat would I'd get it down to 5.5, 6%.
Wow.
That's
I don't think I've ever been there, man.
It's great when you're racing because you're light, but it's not great because you get sick all the time because your immune system. But so you have to weigh that. So during you'd say, okay, I'm off season, so I'm gonna put a little weight. Even like the competitive bodybuilders, when they're off season, they put on weight and then they lose it.
Yeah.
And so you got to know your body. You got to know your season. You got to know what you're doing. But if you're not racing, then my whole thing is your body will get whatever weight you're at, it'll get stabilized there.
Sure.
And so you want to get to a weight and get stable and find out what you can do to maintain it healthy without being a Nazi. Nobody wants to be one of those persons like, oh, I can have 2 chips.
Right.
So you want to be able to, especially fellowship, I think is important, and be able to go to people's houses and eat what they serve,
right.
and go to restaurants with people and go out and have fun and those type things. Is finding a way to add that into your without I go out and throw up in the I feel terrible about myself because I had a whatever.
Right.
What is that, deep fried? Remember the deep fried moon pie?
Oh my
deep fried
goodness.
Oreos.
Bro, so down at Rail Yard Brewing Company, I think it's where Dreamland is now downtown.
Where Dreamland is now.
They had a, sorry, we're going to derail people. People are about to make a change, then we're going to talk about this. But never mind. They had
it's okay, I don't know anything about
it. Was called
it's closed.
It was a deep fried moon pie. They would take a chocolate moon pie, they would deep fry it, and they would cover it in vanilla ice cream and this glaze that was like the greatest. It was like a caramel type glaze. It was like the greatest thing you ever had in your entire life, and it took a year off my life every time I ate one. Like, I'm sure, but
it was a trade.
Every bit of
it.
But the point is, like, there are times in life where that's appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, again, I remember at a time where I was a little too much into training, and like we go to a birthday party and like, hey, my kid's birthday party, you want a piece of cake? No, I don't eat cake, blah blah. And I'm like, what a jerk. have a piece of cake.
That's not healthy.
It's not healthy.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that.
Sure.
Because you kind of ended the service or the message talking about self-discipline has to have celebration involved.
Yeah.
So, I mean, why? Because like you're talking about all this stuff, why is that important to have celebration in mind when you're?
Well, again, the Bible talks about times of fasting and times of feasting. Like there's both, and I mean, God wants us to enjoy our lives. Again, I think about my kids.
He wants you to have that deep fried.
Occasionally, that's right.
No, he does not. No, nothing about that was godly.
But yeah, I mean, so like you talk about the birthday party. I talked about that from the stage. I remember Ava this past year comes up to me on her birthday and she wanted me to have a piece of cake, and I'm going, I'm not going to do that. It would have hurt her feelings. So of course I'm going to have the cake. For Father's Day this year, I didn't want to eat any of the cake that they had at my parents' house.
What kind of cake was it?
Dairy Queen ice cream cake.
Oh, I would have. Yeah, I would have devoured that.
And so, but I did, because it's important to have those times of celebration, and like the Lord even puts that in Scripture. I mean, there was the year of Jubilee. There was all these different, seasons and celebrations and feasts that they would have.
Remember.
And again, it's not an always thing, because we need to maintain that health in our lives, but we do need to stop. We do need to celebrate. And people matter. And like it or not, breaking bread with others, fellowship with others is one of the ways that we show folks that we care about them, that we have fellowship with them. And it is important occasionally to have that time of celebration. Yeah. Absolutely it is.
Yeah.
What did a comedian I heard once say, I only, do whatever she does. I only do it on the birthday of a friend on Facebook.
Right.
On a friend on Facebook.
Okay.
Every day.
It's you've just got to know the different seasons of life you're in and what you're doing, and you got to know your weaknesses. I mean, there's some things. If I have that, I'm going off the deep end, and I'm not talking about alcohol. I'm talking about ice cream. I'm talking about Oreos.
Hardy looks hungover and is like, "Hey man, what was the matter?" He's like, "Man, double chocolate chunk, man. I'm telling you,
you got me.
Got me good."
I mean, I have seen people, and I have coached people literally that if you open up Oreos and they have one, they will wake up at 2 a.m. and polish off the entire thing. And I'm like, "What are you thinking?" And they're like,
"I just got it."
It's almost an addictive personality.
Yeah.
Right.
And again, a lot of time people I coached were addicted to working out. That addictive personality can go in a lot of different ways.
That's exactly right.
And a lot of people deal with that in different things. And a lot of times you've got to be careful, because you can be addicted to a good thing to a bad level.
Yeah.
And eating, I would say, is one of those things. Is you can, food's good, and it's supposed to taste good, and we need it. It's healthy, and working out is good, but everything has to have.
You got to have boundaries.
You got to have boundaries. Got to have balance.
Yeah, and that's what that leads to health, and that's our goal. Our goal is the healthy life that God wants us to have: healthy spiritual life, healthy physical life, and those two things are tied together 100%. Well, gentlemen, I've really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah.
Hardy has done a fantastic job pretending to be Adam in here today. So well done, buddy.
We're going to edit it out in like 3 minutes.
Right? Yeah, our special guest. So anyway, guys, great podcast. No,
this is Hardy.
That's
All
right.
Good talking to you,
Hardy. This has been fantastic, and we're going to be continuing our message series from Stress to Blessed this Sunday morning. And looking forward to that 9:30 and 11 a.m. Join us here on campus. If for some reason you're traveling, you can always join us online, vaughnforest.com, or YouTube channel, or Facebook page. But we appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you so much for that. And on behalf of Hardy Sellers, Matt Collins, sound guy Jonathan, and myself, thanks for joining us, and we will catch you next time.